He's a good kid.
Oh, look at that. Got my name right, too. Like that. Good to go.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. That's what they say in Germany. So tonight we have Todd Raines going to teach us how to do some different ways to do bowls. And with that, I'm going to let him take it over because he doesn't need a whole lot of introductions. Todd Raines.
Thanks, John. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So I want to ask a question of the audience first. And what I'd like to do is, this is recording, Ken's recording this. I'd like to record it from my perspective. Does anybody have a problem with me filming with an iPhone out to the audience and at the tool rest? No objections? Okay, good. So I'm going to rig this up. Got my little iPhone carrier. I've started on this business venture because I've been out of work for a while. So I started March, April of this year, Woodturning tool store. And really it's only one, two, three products at this point. This little drive, which we'll talk about a bit more, and a couple other things. So, but one of the things I'm doing with that is also doing a YouTube channel to show what I'm doing and stuff. So what I think this will help with is you'll get the perspective up here when Ken posts it to the DAW webpage or YouTube. And I'll post to my YouTube channel the same thing from my perspective. It'll give you a good point of view of the tools and how I use them on this side, which may be a little difficult to get from this perspective. So that's what I like to do. We'll see if it works. And if you guys like it, maybe we can do some more of this kind of stuff. We'll figure out how that works. And I've got an extra battery pack in my pocket. I've got microphone for myself here as well, so I'm all rigged up. Look at that, eh? Well, no, it's crazy. Okay, let me hit record here. Oh, you know, I got something else here to do too. So this whole adventure has been a wild ride last few months, and trying to figure out how to do online sales, do all that web commerce stuff. And so it's kind of been a fun thing to learn, but it's a heck of a lot of work. So we'll be first-time vendors at SWAT, so I'll be seeing hopefully a lot of you down there. Looking forward to it, and we'll see how that goes. So I'm hoping to add more tools to the store as we go. This is a wide-angle lens, believe it or not. It's crazy, isn't it? The stuff they do these days. Yeah, that'll work better. Be a better view of the tools. You guys will get a kick out of this when you see it online. So it looks a little ridiculous, but it's kind of cool. So what I'm going to do tonight is a little bit of bowl turning. I've got different tools that I'm going to show, a couple of different techniques that I use, and things I've learned from other turners. So we'll see how that goes. And hopefully you learned something. I know there's a lot of bowl turners in here, but we are being asked to do more empty bowls and stuff, so we'll hopefully inspire some empty bowls. I have, just as guilty as a lot of people here, haven't turned any empty bowls in this year, so that'll change this fall. So let's get going. What I'm going to do is talk about getting the blank out of the log, mounting techniques, cutting techniques, and we'll go through that step by step. And you know, if you get to a point where you have a bowl that you don't like, you cut it in half. You put a back on it with magnets, and you put all your stuff in there you kind of tend to lose. So that's what I do with my bowls that I don't like. So one of the things to get your blanks cut, if you harvest wood, you need to saw off the blank. So I brought with me my cutting sled, just to show you a couple of things that I do. I know this is going to be a big picture, Ken, but we'll make it work. There we go. So this is a little sled that it fits on my bandsaw. I got the saw curve here where the blade goes, but one thing I've added is a place to add fences or little rails to, oh, that one goes this way, to capture the log, if I can get that in there. So if you have a skinny log, you don't want it to roll on you. Okay, there we go. So you can lay your log in there, and you're able to cut safely. So it's a good cradle for it. You can adapt it for different sizes. Almost lost that. So if you got big logs, little logs. The other thing you can do is put this on the other side, and that one's not going to quite fit there because I'm running out of room. And you can cut end logs safely and stuff like that. So I use this quite a bit, not only for cutting log sections, but also if I need a zero clearance insert on my bandsaw, I'll just throw that up. So that's one thing. Now you've got the log sort of cut to size. Now you need to cut a blank out of it. This is the second bandsaw jig. So this one has got a pivoting arm. The saw blade goes through here. You load it on there. I've got little dowels here to kind of register on it on the bandsaw table. There's holes in here to stick a little dowel, which I think I threw in that little pot there. So when you have your blank with a 5/16 inch hole, which is perfect size for the woodworm screw or screw chuck, little dowel, register it there. The nice thing about this is when your log is too big to fit in front of the bandsaw blade, you swing it in and it cuts it. This is a stop, and you just spin, and it goes like that. It's a great little jig. There's a website called, it's actually New Zealand. I think it's South Auckland Woodturners Guild.org.nz. They have a bunch of jig PDF files and tip files, and that's where I got the plans for this thing. Okay, yeah, will do. So these two jigs help me get logs into bowl blanks. So once you get there, then you got your bowl blank cut out. You've already got a hole in it for the screw chuck, and you're ready to go. So that's prepping the log to a bowl. I put anchor seal on it just to stop it from cracking and stuff, and you can process all your blanks that way. Those two jigs help me a lot. So one of the things that you can decide once you get your log is how you want to cut it. This log came like, I think actually about like that, but it's out of the same piece. So I cut it in half this afternoon. It's ash, I believe, so yeah, it's ash. And what we'll do is we'll turn one of these as a natural edge bowl, and the other one we'll turn as a regular bowl. I left one long just to show you a little bit of how you can cut off or knock off the ends and the corners on the lathe. It's a bit more work, but you can do it, so I thought I'd show a bit of that. Or we could turn this into a bowl within a log. So we'll have flat top, edges, and we'll have a little bowl on the bottom. So we'll figure out if we got time to do that one, we'll try that as well. We'll see how it goes. Just check where I am here. Okay, I think we're on track. Oh, I know what the handout. So I don't really have a handout of these. I'll try and get, I had printouts of these. I couldn't find my soft copies. There's two handouts I wanted to talk about that I found that setting up for this bowl class that I was really wondering where the heck I got this. I'm not quite sure. I think this was a SWAT handout one year. But it shows pictures of what your form will look like cut out of different logs in different ways, right? So traditional bowl there, then you flip it over, and you show a natural edge coming out of here. So this little handout was handy, and if anybody can remember or has seen this before, to help me find out what source this came from. That would be handy, because I can't remember, honestly. But I can make copies of this if anybody wants one. It's really kind of cool. It does hollow forms as well, what the grain pattern will look like, end grain, or if you got a funny looking log, or if you cut it out at the edge, you have this opening. I've done one of these before. This one is kind of cool. We've got a hole in the side. So anyway, that's a nice handout to look at. The other one that I found was Nick Cook's article. I think this was in the AAW a few years back, but it's on the website, if you remember. 20 Ways Not to Turn a Bowl. Has lots of good information of what not to do and some hints and tips and stuff for bowl turning. So I'll try and hit on some of these as we go through it, but this one's on the AAW website if anybody wants to grab that, or they can take a copy of this one. So we'll mount this little natural edge bowl first, and we'll proceed from there. So if anybody's got questions, just let me know, yell them out or whatever. So if I go too fast or there's something I'm not doing that you normally do, let me know. So to mount this natural edge bowl, we would mount it this way on the headstock and turn the bowl so it's this way in the, there's the camera, okay, so not overhead. But there we go, thanks. So we're going to make a bowl in this shape here, on this bowl. And I don't know if the bark will stay on, we'll find out. So one of the things to be able to do to hold on to the bowl this way between centers is using a standard spur drive, which I think I pulled one out of the box, in the headstock, and that works fine. You'll end up drilling a hole. You want to make sure you tighten up the tailstock as you go, because you get a hole drilled there. You could use a faceplate, if you can get a faceplate on there. This is one of the tools that I sell. It's one of the reasons I bought the company, because I like this tool, and I'll show you how that works. It's basically a spur drive with a center pin that is, what do I call it? Key. Yeah. Center pin that comes out, it's 5/16, which is kind of handy because it fits right in if you're doing a screw chuck. You can use this as a centering pin. It's locked into this piece with a set screw. And it's got two 10 by 24, I believe, or 1/4 by 20 screws that have sharpened points. So essentially, you've got 3 points of contact in the wood that are driving into the wood. So number 2 Morse taper. It's got a threaded insert in the end, so you can use a drawbar. Through this headstock, I brought my drawbar, but what I didn't anticipate is this deep insert in this handle. So I've got to figure out something to work with that. So we won't need the drawbar tonight because I'm going to use the tailstock to mount this thing. So to mount it, we want to know, one of the things I learned from a class I took with Al Sturt about 9-10 years ago, he's big on grain orientation and how the grain flows in a bowl. So he has a similar device that he's developed over the years. In fact, he probably had it before this was developed, where you can shift, once you turn the bowl, you can shift it one way or the other, and you've got more purchase on where you're putting it so that you line up your grain. We'll see that when we start turning it, but that's one of the advantages of having a sort of a pivoting center, if you will, on the back side, is being able to move it. The other nice thing is if you got a gnarly burl cap or something that has an uneven surface, you can screw one of these out so they're quite a bit further out, and you can mount a piece that's pretty off, uneven surface, I guess is the way to put it. Save that for later. So how many people have never turned a bowl here tonight? hopefully you learned something, and those that have, hopefully you learned something as well. I'm not an expert. I don't do this professionally, so for me, it's been a lot of fun learning bowl turning. Make this a bit more even here. I'm just lining this up by eye. I think that earlier in the day I had some marks laid out, but I got off just a bit. That looks pretty good. Now we got it kind of pinched. We can suck these screws in a bit. Now you notice I don't have it slammed against the faceplate. It's hard to see in the camera, but there is a gap between the wood and the actual steel plate. I've got it held on by the points. And that's kind of what I want. It just is going to be a bit, it's like a stool. Right? Three-legged stool is a bit more forgiving on uneven surfaces than a flat board or something like that. So that's my reasoning anyway. I think that makes sense to me, and it seems to work well. Tool rest is a bit big, but it'll work. So what I like to do first is knock the corners off. I think that makes sense to everybody. So we'll get this set up. I set the tool rest around 45 degrees to the work so that I can knock the work off that way. Hopefully the sound works fine when I got this on. Let me know otherwise. I've got a gamut of tools here. I spent a while sharpening today. I usually use the big one. This isn't a big log, but I use the big one to really take the roughness out, hit the corners. I got something square. It's a 5/8 Thompson gouge and a homemade handle. Turn the speed down, it's all the way down. So, and I'm just hitting a little bit. Okay. Everybody ready? Can you still hear me okay? Perfect. I don't know if I'll say a whole lot here, but... Okay, I'll talk a little slower like a Texas. Is that right? Okay, so I tend to stand out of the way when I rough. A lot of people do an overhand grip, and I'll probably do that. We tend to get hit with a lot of stuff. But if you stand and do it left-handed, then just let it fly off that way. And I got a bevel rubbing right there already, even with just the four corners. You can see the cut there where I've got a bevel able to engage. Yes? Well, I'm taking the corners off. Once I get up there, we'll turn the other way. Good point there, Larry. You got to remember that when you're doing our natural edge, and in the heat of the spotlight here, I may forget a thing or two. So let me know. And I follow through all the way until I hear no more sound. Then I know I'm out of the cut. Now I can get a lot closer. The tool is angled up, bevel's engaged. I can sit there all day, I have no problems. I've got the tool tucked into my hip. I've got a stance that's kind of steady, I'm almost leaning against the lathe. In fact, I do on my bigger lathe, but this one's a bit smaller. Just follow through. I'm taking a couple of bites here on the bottom, just to kind of get the balance out of that edge. Oh, is it? Oh, okay. I got caught on the wire. Is that better? Okay. What does it sound like? Does it sound, is it better this way? Maybe, I don't know. Somebody got any safety glasses? No. This is ash, yep. Yep, you can tell, you know, it's pretty grain pattern in it, so. I picked this up, I can't remember where, to be honest, but I've got a few logs of it. These other two pieces are ash as well. Yeah, maybe I'll try to remember that. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll check my notes here because the first part is roughing, explaining why. So to rough, obviously, to knock the corners off, but also to get it in balance. It's a little difficult with a natural edge piece to get everything in balance, as you don't really have access to this side at this point. So on a screw chuck, you might have more access to this side to be able to balance it out. I'll show you that if we get to that one. And I'll try and whip through this one tonight. This is also wet, so I'm going to turn this to finish. So we're not going to twice turn. We'll try and turn this all in one sitting here tonight. So the first thing I want to do is establishing a bottom. I'm still a little uneven here on the bottom. So you can see I've got a fat cut here and it thins out to nothing here. So I've got to flatten this bottom off so I can establish where my tenon's going to be. And as we get up here, I'm going to watch this area here. As soon as this area gets cut, then I know I'm at my maximum bowl size. So then we'll worry about. Yeah. Okay. So again, I'm going to flatten the bottom because we're a little uneven on the cut here. I don't know if you can notice that. I've got no cut here, but I've got a big cut here. I'm also going to watch these areas here. And then once this area is gone, where it's flat, then I know that I'm at my maximum bowl size. And I can stop there, cut backwards, as Larry said, to preserve the bark, and then we can turn it around once I got a tenon. So roughing is just getting this. We'll finish that off quickly here, and then I'll move on to setting the tenon and some finishing cuts. Oops, wrong way. No, that was the right way. I'm going to change to a smaller gouge. This is one of my favorites. The sound changes when you're cutting this versus this. That's when I know I'm flat. So now this is where I'm flattest, so I just got to make that flat the rest of the way. We switch to an overhand grip. As I was going through that last cut, my hand was over top, but I was pushing the tool through the hand as I was doing that to get to the edge. I'm not quite at the edge yet, so I'm going to do that one more time. Before I do, I got my caliper set up. I just want to make sure I'm not taking too much.
Pretty close. Okay, we got all the wings cut off, so we're at the edge, at the point where we can establish our rim. So grain direction in bowl turning is important, and what I've been doing is cutting with the grain this way. What I'm going to do now is cut against the grain this way, just on the rim. So on this width here, I got to cut downhill so that I save as much of the bark edge as I can. And that's what Larry was alluding to earlier. So we'll go against the grain here. What I like to do is kind of back up to it. I'll rub my bevel, come up this way, and then go in. And that allows me to understand where I need to be. So now I know I can go in. That's not bad. Now we've got to figure out what kind of shape we want here. A little bit, because it's such a small bowl. My tenon's going to be about there. So let me figure out the tenon first, and then we'll figure out the shape, because that kind of determines what you're going to do. If I had smaller jaws, I might make a smaller tenon, but I've got this chuck here, so. The size of the wood size of the wood kind of dictates the hold you have on it. This is such a small piece. It doesn't need a tenon that big. I could go smaller if I had my chuck from home. But yeah, you just got to use common sense. Nick's article has some good information on that as well. So if we're cutting the tenon, I'm going to use this to start with. Then I'm going to switch to a spindle gouge. There's many ways to do it. I'll show you another way with a parting tool. You can even do it with a skew. I don't have my skew here, but we'll get to that in just a second here. Okay. The tenon is pretty good, so here are a couple of options for cutting tenons. This is my favorite tool, this little spindle gouge. Okay, good idea, Johnny. Little spindle gouge, it's very pointy, it's very shallow flute. So the edge here is pretty straight. So I've got a straight edge here, I've got a straight edge here. I basically take the tool like this and I roll it in there till it's vertical and I get my dovetail cut that way. So we want a dovetail cut so that it fits the jaw profile. So you got the jaw profile there. You want to make sure that you've got a crisp edge at this corner here. You want a flat to register here, and enough in here to hold the wood. I'll show you with this, and then we'll use the parting tool. Hold, and just roll. Vertical, pull out, done. We've got a nice crisp edge to hold on to that jaw, and it's nice and flush. The other way to do it is you can use a parting tool, where this parting tool, the tip is cut, or what's the word? Ground at an angle, thank you. So use it upside down this way, you just push it in, and you've got an angled dovetail with hopefully a smooth bottom. I don't use this very often, every once in a while I do, but it is an option to use. It's basically like using a scraper, but with, oops, I just turned myself off. But with parting tool, skew I meant. So it's kind of like a skew, but just a fatter version of it. So we've got our tenon made. Now we want to figure out the rest of the form. I'm just going to do a little bowl. Simple form. I'm going to use a smaller gouge. Let the heel ground back a little bit. And I'm going to kind of push cut up here a little bit. I may have to come back and cut this way again because I may end up cutting what I just made here. You know, this backwards cut. I may have to redo that. That'll do for now. I'll come back. The grind on that wasn't quite as nice as I had hoped. Sorry about that. So that little gouge, the grind on it was a little off. I could feel it catching a bit, so I'm going to switch back to this one. We'll cut back this way. I'm going to leave this profile and try and match it up this way. I'm going to do no sanding tonight, so I'm going to try and get the best finish off the tool I can. It's a little lumpy. Look up. Okay, we'll fix that with scraping and some other cuts. So we got a bowl shape. Now I want to refine that little lump I've got in here. You can see where the high spot is. So we'll try and clean that up with some shear cutting and some shear scraping. So shear cutting is when I've got the tool all the way, handle is down almost below the lathe. This little handle's in the way. Down like that, and I'm rubbing the side bevel here, okay? So that's what's rubbing on the wood, and I'm going to cut this way. What's happening is the wood is coming down, and it's shearing off the wood on the side of the wing. You can see the wispy shavings. You can see the wispy shavings I'm getting from doing that. So it's a much finer cut, and it'll leave a nice surface. So the shape looks roughly, got a little wormhole there, roughly where I want it. We can do some shear scraping, which is basically turning the flute right over. Now we're scraping with the inside of the edge here. So we can do a bit of that. I'll show that here quickly. You'll notice my body has to be way over here because I got the tool right on my hip and I kind of rock my body back and forth. It's not really an arm movement sort of maneuver. Moving your arms is not quite as steady as moving your body. The other way to do that is with a shear scraper. It's basically a scraper ground with a bevel on it with a slight radius. And what this allows you to do is to shear scrape like this. So I'll actually hold the handle up, the tool tilted, not vertical, but tilted, and we're getting the same sort of shear action. Same kind of nice fluffy shavings. You can see which part of the tool I was cutting on. Of the glare, there you go. The powder is all on the lower third, lower half of the tool. So that is finished good enough for me where you could probably sand with 180, 220 and be done. We'll leave it there. We're going to turn it around and we'll do the inside. Any questions? Anything you want to see again? This is all standard stuff. Sure. Well, I am going to use a chuck now. Yeah, yeah. This guy back on. It's good to have a good showing out tonight for August. Everybody loving this weather? I've never seen grass so green in August. It's crazy. Our sprinklers broke probably 2 years ago. We haven't bothered to fix them. We haven't turned our sprinklers on for 2 years. Yeah, that's part of it. Can't afford the water. All the water restrictions, you know, it's kind of crazy. Oops. Let's hope I size this right. Look at that. So there we have a fairly small gap between our jaws, which is kind of what we want. We'd like to get that as small as possible. That makes the best circle. The further apart they are, the less grip you get on your jaws. And I don't know why, but I always spin and turn and tighten and spin and tighten. I do that on my Jacobs chuck and my drill press. It's just a habit. Take that out. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You lost a bit of bark there. I don't think we're going to be able to save the bark. This was cut in the summertime, so we'll see how much stays. Be a nice looking little bowl. So this is just like coring out any other bowl. We'll start in the middle. We're actually going to have our arm way out here. We'll pivot in and pivot in and pivot in. I'm only going to go a little deep at a time to get my rim established. Then I'll go deeper, come back to the rim. And this is what you have to do when you're turning fresh wood. If you want your rim or your thickness to be, you want your thickness to be all the same all the way down so it warps the same. But more importantly, because there's water in the wood, if you go and core the whole thing and then come back and do the rims, things are going to get out of whack. They're going to shrink and move, and you won't get a nice smooth cut on the rim. So do a little bit at a time as you go down. I don't. You certainly can. I usually don't, though. Sometimes I'll have a hole. If I am doing a screw chuck mount, I'll have the I'll have it mounted like this, do the bottom. I'll come around, I'll have this little hole, but it's only about an inch deep or so. So no, I don't usually bore a hole. If I'm doing something a lot deeper and hollowing, then I will. But for a small bowl like this, even a bowl that size, I don't bother. Losing battery power on my phone, but I have an extra battery in my pocket here, but it's not charging it. Old tech support, hang on. Okay, off we go. So I've made cuts pretty close to this edge. I've got to go a little deeper to get the full live edge. I'm leaving the center mass in here. You see these little rings. Those rings will actually help me reestablish my cut, or I use them to guide my back cut. We'll see that in a second. I'm going to probably back cut a little bit, get rid of this middle part, middle mountain, and come down so I can get a little deeper. So it helping? Yeah. It's too bright? Oh, that's good. Yeah, that works. So the same thing I was doing on the outside, I was kind of rubbing back this way to establish where my tool needs to be, and I'll come back in. So I'll do that again. I think I'm going to go a little bit deeper to make sure I get this edge. So I'm going to back cut again, and we'll go just a little bit deeper, and then we'll do our final pass. The thing about natural edge or live edge pieces, you got to watch out that you don't stick your hand too close because there is a larger edge sticking out. So sometimes I put tape on my rest so that I know where that bowl is coming to, because I don't want to stick my hand there. So. pretty good. I think one of the things I didn't bring the little one, but so this tool is got a much more severe angle on it than this tool. So if I roll it over, you can see the difference there. So this tool would be able to get into the bottoms of the bowl much easier. I have another one that's smaller than this that I've ground just specifically just to get this edge. I didn't bring it tonight, so. What I will do is use a smaller tool, just easier to manipulate in here. So I'm going to be cutting this last pass here along here. It was a little bouncy, but it's a pretty good cut. Okay, now we're past all the live edge stuff, now we're just hollowing the bowl. So I'm going to go back to the big tool for that. I'm going to try and pick up that edge in there and continue the final cut down. Well, yeah, I'm doing that right now, but when I'm cutting, I'm watching the tool tip against the outside of the profile. So by eye, I'm adjusting the tool orientation to get the same thickness. And right now, I'm pretty consistent all the way down. It's getting a little fat near the bottom, but and I'm starting to hit the angle of as far as this tool can go. So I'll have to switch that other tool. We'll see how it works down here. Yeah, I mean, I could get in there and pull back this way. It gets a little, sorry about that. Yeah, it gets a little dicey down there. I'm over the tool rest a little bit. I could try and angle this rest in, but it's pretty broad. I'd usually a smaller, thinner rest, and I might stick it in there a little bit. But yeah, you could pull cut through that. I'm going to try this thing, see how it works. Pardon? Yeah. 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 We got a ways to go on the bottom. Still got a ways to go on the bottom. Still a little fat. Okay, we'll call that a bowl. The last thing you can do is I've got a negative rake scraper. Looks kind of like a skew, but it's a scraper. It's beveled. I think I don't know what degrees, but it's that degrees, whatever that is. So I use that to clean up some of these ridges down the bottom, and sometimes I have a little nipple at the bottom, but tonight I don't have one there, too bad. But this works really well. I got to raise the rest a little bit for this tool. You want this cutting right at center with the handle either level or slightly raised. Well, that's that bowl. Any questions on this one? I'm going to pull it out, because I think we're done this part of it. What I would do after this, one of the things I forgot to mention is when I do these, if I do them twice turned, if I turn it rough and let it dry, I always leave this nub on that has the point, the center point, the tailstock point in it, and let it dry with that. That helps me register it and read true the tenon after it's dried. On these ones, if I'm live turning or one single turning them, it also helps me register on a jam chuck or a vacuum chuck, so I can line it up. I don't have one of those. I didn't bring a jam chuck with me tonight, so this will do for tonight. You want to pass that around, Susan? What time is it? Oh, we're done? Okay. Okay. Sure. It's going to warp no matter what, but you'll stop maybe some cracking. You'll slow down the drying process, so hopefully it doesn't crack as bad. I've had pretty good luck with ash. It doesn't, it's going to move, it's going to oval on me, even the tenon on the bottom, by, tomorrow or even the day after. It'll be oval enough where I'll have to retrue the tenon. So it'll lose a lot of moisture pretty quickly. Anchor seal's going to slow that down, but it won't stop the warping. I think eventually you'll end up with a warp bowl if you turn it wet. Unless you leave it thick, like this is, if you're talking about this kind of turning, if you leave it thick and thick enough so when you turn it the second time, you've got enough wall thickness to straighten it out, then yeah, that's the case. But Yeah, exactly, exactly. So it already looks oval just by its optical effects. Yes, Larry?
One thing you didn't mention, and it didn't happen on this piece because it's small.
Uh-huh.
You didn't mention the balanced sides so that it'll come out even with its natural edge.
Yeah, this one's pretty small, so I don't know.
Now's the time when, after you finish turning it off, between the top, you have to, right?
Yeah. So, you know, if I had this one, I've still got the pith in this one. This is the larger of the two blanks. And if I'm turning this natural edge, like I was mentioning with the Elio drive, which is the new drive center with the pins in it, it allows you to pivot this bottom edge so that you get that nice circle of grain right in the bottom. If you have it off a little bit, you're going to get that circle of grain off to the side, and just the visually inside of the bowl doesn't look quite as nice. So that's, I think what you're talking about, right, Larry? Oh. Okay. Oh, the, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so this bowl, I've got a slight slope to this, so if I turn this natural edge, this side of the this bowl is going to be a little lower than this one. To compensate, I would shift it so that these two are, so when you're on the lathe, if you've got it mounted here, you'd want to shift it this way so that this, where's my camera? I'll just move off here. So at this point, when it rotates, is at the same place that this place is. So that way you balance your edge. Yeah. Possibly, yeah, yeah, yeah. It depends on what kind of wood you got, right? So, what kind of blank. But yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Hopefully it was enjoyable. Hopefully you learned something or saw something. If you got any questions after, give me a call. One more. Thank you. Well, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. No, you're still on side grain no matter which way this goes, whether it's this way or this way. It's still side grain, so you still want to cut from. Yeah, absolutely, and certainly the grain pattern will be different. You'll see in this little bowl, there'll be little ovals in the bottom, concentric rings all the way out. The other way orientation, you'll see a starburst pattern in the bottom. You'll have rays, parts of the bowl, rays going this way and this way on both sides, and then on this side. You'll have a starburst, a four-pointed star in the bottom. So, grain orientation is, and this little handout, I'll show you, come up afterwards, I'll show you the handout, and it kind of helps explain some of that. Yeah, so this one, my mic is still on here.